There are many words used to describe witch hunters. For Woodward, the apprentice hiding behind an overturned cart, several choice words leapt to mind, but foremost was relentless, like the hail of crossbow bolts firing in his direction. If only there was more cover to hide behind, he and his henchmen could slink away. Hello there, my friends. If you're like me, all too often, you find yourself being ambushed by witch hunters and other crossbow-wielding scallywags. Much of the time, I'm able to take shelter from their crossbow bolts by hiding behind something like an overturned cart. Yet, I still find myself wishing for more things that I could take cover behind on these ruined streets, like broken fences, overturned tables, and makeshift barricades. If only such things were astonishingly easy and cheap to make. In the original Mordheim rulebook and other supplements and articles, there is a lot of both inspiration and information that one can use to make barricades, scatter terrain, and other bits of cover. Small crafts and little pieces of terrain like this can serve to bring life into your tabletop and game worlds, and help preserve the lives of your characters and warband members. In this video, we're going to make two different types of cardstock barricades inspired by the ones that I played with many years ago from the original Mordheim starter box. First, I wanted to share some of the cardboard barricades I made in 2020 when I returned to the game world. They're not bad, but I think we can do a lot better. These are some of the simple tools and materials that I use to make my barricades. We don't use all of them in this video today, but I either have used them all in the past or have plans to use them in the near future. We're making two different types of barricades today. One with a thicker cardstock base, and one with these little feet. For the cardstock base, we'll scratch up the back of a piece of cardstock, cut it into two rectangles about the same size, glue them together, and then put it under something heavy. You're going to need some double-sided wood texture cardstock that I showed how to make in a previous video. Most of the barricades I've already made are about 3 inches, more or less. 2 to 3 inches is probably a good size for them, depending on what kind of games you play. So, we'll cut out some 3-inch planks, roughly, some thinner, some thicker. If they curve a little bit, just curve them back. Like I say, it's only cardboard, it's only cardstock, it's not that serious. Using one of our thicker pieces, we'll cut out 2 short bits, I don't know, maybe an inch or a little bit less in size, and we'll use those to make the feet for our first barricade. We'll take another big plank, and we'll cut 2 notches into it. We'll trim our feet into sort of a little wedge shape. And then cut a notch into each of the feet as well. Test fit them to make sure you're happy with how they go together, and then you can glue them in. From here, you could easily just glue on more planks and add a little damage, but I want to make a door for this one. So I took an old ruin that I've made that had a doorway I thought was a pretty good size, and I'm going to trace the doorway onto this piece of cardstock here. I think having a ruined door as part of it will really give this barricade a ramshackle, makeshift appearance. After all, as I say, much like my life, most of my games are spent in ruins. When I was happy with my door shape, I cut it into half and then each of the halves into thirds to give me 6 pieces, 6 little boards to use to make the door. Using 2 little planks as cross beams to give it more support and more of a door-like look, then I glued them all together. It's a little bit slanted, but I don't think that'll matter in the end. I lined it up to see where I wanted to cut it to make it look like a ruined, broken door. When building something like this, the really important concept is connection points. So the more parts of the door that are touching the more parts of the frame, the stronger it is. So we'll want to glue on a little board to help support it. We'll want to attach the door there. We'll want to attach the door to a foot, attach the door to the board. And then as we glue on more planks and boards to make it look like even more of a thrown together piece of cover that somebody nailed together haphazardly in an emergency, we'll add even more connections, even more stability, even more strength and support. Things that we all need, not just in our art and crafts and terrain, but in our lives as well. Once you're satisfied with the amount of planks and boards you've glued on, that's it. We're done with the build stage for the barricade with feet. And now we move on to the barricade with the base. Our double thick cardstock is all dry. I'm just using one of the bases I already made as a template. It's really not complicated, just sort of a pill shape. It's about 3 inches long, about 1 inch wide. Pretty easy. For our base barricade, I want it to look like a broken fence that someone has tried to reinforce with pieces like this wheel and other boards they could find. So we'll cut out 2 pieces to use as fence posts, and we'll glue those to the base. Then we'll glue a couple of boards on to make it look like a usual post and rail fence. The top board we're going to cut in half and make it look damaged and broken. We're going to glue 1 half of it onto the top as well as the next board, and then the other half on the ground. And by gluing it to our fence post as well, this serves as another connection point to add more strength and stability. This wheel from my How to Make a Cart video will add more stability as well when we glue it to the fence and to the base. Connections, very important. No one can do it all on their own. Except me, I guess. I don't need anybody. This is a very liberating kind of build because you can just glue on planks and boards until you're satisfied. Then in the detail step, you can let your chaotic, aggressive, destructive side come out. Because really, we're just chipping away at it with the scissors, scratching it with the knife to make battle damage, trying to make our barricades look like they've seen some stuff. When you're satisfied with the damage, we'll brush some glue onto the base and then dip it into our dirt. After that's dried, we'll prime and strengthen them with our mixture of 50/50 black paint and Mod Podge, just cheap black acrylic craft paint. It'll help seal in the dirt, it'll help strengthen the cardstock and make it more durable, and it'll give our paint something more to hold on to, as well as serving as a base coat. For when we paint the wood brown, it'll make parts of it look burned, grimy, neglected. After the base coat is dried, we'll dry brush the entire piece with an off-white. This will bring back highlights, little details. We'll be able to see the work that our texture has put in. While I was at it, I dry brushed a wizard I'd made. With the black base coat and the off-white dry brush for highlights, painting these is very simple, and I feel like it's a much better recipe for painting wood than in my first few videos with my cardboard shack. For the first step, we'll paint all the wood with just a medium brown. Mine is a nutmeg apple barrel paint, very cheap acrylic craft paint, and perfect for these kinds of projects. For our based barricade, we will paint the dirt with a dark brown. This one is a burnt umber. Make sure to paint the edges of the base as well. To pick out little stones and texture, we'll dry brush the dirt with a couple drops of gray. Then, we'll mix a drop of our off-white with the drop of our nutmeg brown to make a tan, and we will dry brush this color over everything. The wood, the ground, all of it. Pretty good so far. You can always stop painting whenever you're satisfied. For me, to give things a dusty, worn down look, I'm going to give a final dry brush to everything, again the wood and the ground, just a final dry brush of our off-white. This can really be used to add color variation, highlights to edges, and emphasis on places like the battle damage where we scratched it with the knife. And that's it. Old, weathered, rotting wood, no washes or anything needed. There we are, my friends. Heavily inspired by the original Mordheim terrain, my cardstock barricades, meant to add life and cover to your games. Little details for your tabletop. A bit better, I think, than my original cardboard ones. Since most of the games I play, a model is free to move over a terrain that's 1 inch in height or less, I always try to make part of my barricades an inch or less in height, as they are meant to provide cover, but not total concealment. If you had fun with this project, you can make as many as your heart desires in no time at all. Once you have around 8 or so, you can even make a fighting pit like me, recreating a scene from the Mordheim rulebook's serious injuries chart, where a hero has to fight against a merciless pit fighter, often ending in tragedy. And that's just one possibility. Your barricades can have many uses beyond just cover and scatter terrain to help you escape from roving bands of merciless witch hunters, mercenaries, or even the so-called Skaven, the fictional rat men that are said to plague our streets and sewers. While Woodward makes his escape, I invite you to share your thoughts. I would like to know in the comments which you think is better for you, barricades made with a base or with feet. What sort of elements would you use, like wheels and doors, to bring life into your games? And what games would you use something like this in? Aside from Mordheim, I would love to use these in Forbidden Psalm, Frostgrave, and the Silver Bayonet. That's all for this episode. Thank you very much for watching, my friends. There's a lot more coming soon. Take care until next time.